Right now, we have the director and producer of the film The Hornets Nest, Christian Tureaud, in studio. Christian, great to have you along, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
We've got a director and a producer here, Russ. Here's your chance.
I know. Hi there. How are you?
Here's your chance.
Can I get my uniform on? Because I got it right back there.
You want
the Air Force
your major
it's
healing
too hot, though, yeah.
First of all, you have a film called The Hornets Nest, which has gotten terrific ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes, of course, is a movie critic or movie rating site for the people, for the masses. And I want to talk about it a little bit because this is pretty unique. Tell us about the film.
Jeez.
Yeah, the film is pretty unique. It's groundbreaking. We've you've probably never seen anything like it before. It's real footage that was shot in Afghanistan on the front lines with U.S. troops by a father and son journalist team.
Wow.
And they shot over a 2-year period, 500 hours of raw footage. And then what they did is send it back to us in L.A. as filmmakers.
And you guys edited it.
And we had to...
Well, when I say edited, by the way, I mean you splice it together, add music. You didn't change the content. You just you make it look like a movie.
Well, here's the issue. I mean, 500 hours of footage, it's like a huge puzzle piece on the ground. So you have to... Who are the characters? What are the storylines? What are the missions? How are you going to tie it all together?
Right.
Also, it was shot for news. It was bits and bytes. It wasn't shot to be a film. Mike and Carlos Boettcher, the father and son, they actually won 2 Emmys for their coverage for ABC.
So they were just embedded journalists.
They were embedded journalists.
So these guys took their footage, not on their iPhone, by the way.
Right.
And they sent it back to you guys as filmmakers.
Yes.
And basically, you guys created a film, a story.
Yes.
Well, you told the story. You didn't create anything. You told this story in a salient manner to where you could take all this footage and make it go from point A to point B.
Yeah, and what's interesting, it feels like a Steven Spielberg $50 million scripted film
like
with actors.
Yeah, we're watching clips here, and that's all solid stuff.
Yeah,
It's
for
unbelievable.
our radio audience, we'll post some of this up at bigbizshow.com. But you'll be able to go to we'll put the Hornets Nest website link on the website. You can check it out, and I'll put it out to our 20,000 Twitter followers as well. But this was, what is the biggest thing you took out of this? Is the fact that for me anyway. We live our lives in our heads and we think we know what's going on over there.
Yeah.
And we just don't.
Exactly.
And when so we have this sort of desensitized notion of what happens, this war in Afghanistan, this war in Iraq, this thing that's going on in the jungle somewhere, and we don't really know what goes on. And this shows us a non-Hollywood version told in a Hollywood way. In other words, make it so we can understand it, but it's the scary part about it is we're looking at real footage.
Real footage, real heroes, real Americans.
And how about scripting or anything like that?
None.
Does it follow that?
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. So what happened was we just wanted to tell an immersive story. It's more of an experience than a movie. We grab you by the shirt, and for an hour and a half, you're in Afghanistan, and you are on these missions with the troops, and there's bullets flying and IEDs going off, and they're saving children, and it's an unbelievable representation of what we stand for as Americans, and no one's ever seen it before like this.
So, but movie-wise, it's not like, well, here's the star, and here's his co-star, and here's who he falls in love with, and here's the wedding.
But are there characters like he says?
Absolutely.
I mean, so there's people you can follow.
Well, what we did was we made the father and son characters in the film. So
the journalists themselves.
So the journalists are characters. So what happened is Mike Boettcher, for 35 years, has been the best conflict journalist in the world.
Sure.
He's so good that he was never home.
And he's so good, he's still doing it.
Yes, he's still doing
it.
Right.
He's still doing it.
You're right in the.
And the issue is that he believes if he doesn't do it, no one else will.
Right.
So he has to be there to cover these stories. And it's a parallel thread with the soldiers and Marines. They believe it's their duty as well to country. If they don't do it, no one else will.
Right. And then his son's following in his footsteps, seeing the importance of what his dad's doing.
But here's the interesting thing. He was never home. So his son resented him for 20 years.
Oh, geez.
And this was their coming together. The way they could bond as father and son was to go basically go where Mike had gone for all those years. And Carlos demanded to go. So we have them as characters, and then the soldiers and Marines are characters. And it's interesting. There are no Hollywood stars, but the stars of this film are these characters, real American heroes.
I want to call Freddie Saxon here, our movie critic, who's going to come in because Fred's handed to me a.
Hey, Freddie.
Hey, Freddie.
All right, Fred.
Fred handed to me I guess it's sort of a review from the San Diego Reader, and the reason we emanate locally here in San Diego, although we're nationwide, coast to coast, and the bottom line is here is that you guys are opening in the West Coast here, but you've opened to some great praise here.
Yeah, we have.
And let me read you what the Reader said. The Reader said, not since Gunner Palace Has a war documentary brought the viewer this close to a world where it's strange for a few hours to pass without a bullet whizzing by, an IED going off? In spite of its gung-ho good old boy swear, it is not a recruitment film. It's not a video game film. That says a lot to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
What I have to say, the two things that we wanted to do was tell a non-political story and make it told through a father and son's eyes. Right. It had never been done before either way. Either of those storylines had never been done.
And it's all strung together with like VO from those two.
We used different methods. We used VO. We used on camera. Yeah. We used text to tell you what's happening in Afghanistan. We used music as a thread. It was pretty difficult to weave this thing together.
And I spoke to my friend Scott Marks, who wrote that, and then the next paragraph in that review, he talks about it's not about your film. This documentary shows that the most important thing for these guys to do is not necessarily fight for a war against a war on terror. What the most important for them to do while they're there is to fight for each other.
Yes. Exactly.
And people die. People die. Do they die in the film?
6 soldiers don't come home. You get
Do
to
you
know,
follow their stories?
You get to know them. You care about them. Your heart is ripped out for them. But you do not. You honor their legacy. You honor their heroism. These soldiers ran through a hail of bullets to go save their brothers who were surrounded by Taliban down in the bottom of the valley, even knowing they were probably going to die doing it.
So, I think the important part of this, and this is what I got out of this reader issue, is that it's not about sensationalism, because I think so many of these films are. Some of these films have the shock factor. I mean,
and they're staged.
You're exactly right. That's exactly right. So very quickly before we let you go today, you are opening in L.A. this Friday, May 30th, San Diego and Orange County.
And Long Beach.
So West Coast, and then where do you go?
And New York City.
Oh, New York City.
Yeah, so we're actually, this is our 4th week in the market.
Okay.
We did a unique platform rollout, and now in the 4th week, we're coming to New York and Southern California because we have momentum. We've gathered momentum throughout the country.
How about the other side of the flack from idiots who think we shouldn't even be at war and try to give out candy to everybody in the world and talk?
You can't please everybody.
That's true. Are you getting some stuff
we're actually not getting much because it's told non-politically, because it's apolitical down the middle. It's just an experience. Both sides of the aisle are jumping on. That's pretty amazing.
Oscar nomination.
There you go. Christian
Tureaud.
Christian, thanks so much. The website, thehornetsnestmovie.com. That'll be at bigbizshow.com. More from us in a minute. Fred, that was impressive because I saw some of the footage on their website, and I didn't know that it was all taken from news footage. And of course, we're talking about the movie The Hornets Nest. We just had Christian Tureaud on, the director, and I think he's going to be up for an Oscar for this.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's when it's real, and that is real footage. I mean, it wasn't clear when you started out. I didn't know because you hadn't seen the film. I haven't seen the film. I've seen clips, and you've seen clips, but it's not clear because there's so many of these Hollywood-created war movies, combat movies, with Mark Wahlberg or whoever. That this is a documentary. You are there. You're right in the nitty-gritty of...
Those aren't computer-generated CGI special effects.
That's right.
Those are a couple of embedded journalists. It was intended to be a one-day assault on the head Taliban and the Al-Qaeda village living in this valley. Yeah. And the troops went into a 9-day siege. 6 members of the 101th Airborne died before the mission was completed, and you get to know these people before it happens. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's
I get goosebumps just thinking.
Yeah, no, really, it's truly no other film in history has ever shown a war like this. So this is, and the interesting part is, again, it's in your head until you see, we think we know what goes on there. I'm thinking a bunch of gray dirt and people driving down the road because we see news footage, but until you see something like that, you really don't know.
Is it easier to do a film like this now because of smaller cameras, digital editing? I mean, back 500 hours of footage would have been like tons of film and crap to look through. Now, digitally, I don't know.
It would be easier today to have this shot with GoPro cameras on all the helmets.
Right.
And I'm sure that's
like
being
the
done.
HD GoPro
I'm
camera.
sure there are a lot of GIs out there that are affixing cameras to their helmets. Now, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Would the military censor that footage?
Oh, yeah.
They may.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting to think about that because, of course, we're seeing things that maybe we shouldn't be seeing.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, now the question was, is it easier to shoot it?
Shoot it or produce it overall?
I think the opportunity for footage is greater than ever before.
Right.
So in that case, you have more raw material to work with.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. You weren't thinking that.
I was totally thinking that.
You were not thinking
I was
that.
just thinking of all the, actual, if they would have filmed it,
Yeah.
film, it would have been stacks and all kinds of, what a pain in the neck, because I've done editing.
Well, but I think Janikis and Matovich can tell us, sorting through. Chris and Curtis, could you imagine going through 500 hours of footage? Just ingesting that is more than 500 hours of watching, correct?
Yeah, it's easier to shoot it. It's harder to watch it.
Yeah, plus then you have to assemble it.